Hey, good morning, everybody. It's Hammer. Today is Wednesday, October 23rd, 2024. I, of course, am with Originator Success here with your daily mortgage rate update, the only place on the web where you guys get to join me live each and every day, 9:30 a.m. Eastern Time. We talk about what's going on with mortgage rates and pricing. And I'll tell you more of your I don't want to say competitors, more of your brethren need to be watching this because I see so much misinformation out there from LOs. Some of them who even subscribe to some really good services, but yet they have no idea what's going on with rates and pricing and why. So we're going to just kind of go over some of that again today. But anyway, join me live each and every day, 9:30 a.m. Eastern Time. If you're watching the replay, don't forget to give me a hashtag replay in the comments. Let me know that you are here. We broadcast on Facebook and on YouTube. Do me a favor. It helps with the algorithm when you guys interact. You put in comments, you do the thumbs up, all that good stuff. So don't forget to smash that like button, tag an LO friend, share us in a group. If you're on YouTube, do try to leave a comment for me. I appreciate it. Even if it's short, and give us that thumbs up thing. Make sure you subscribe. Also, you can sign up for our free email, Lock Advice, www.ratelockadvice.com. Goes to your inbox each and every weekday morning, absolutely free of charge. You can sign up for our text alerts at www.ratetextalerts.com. You can also sign up for a reminder if you'd like to be reminded that I'm going live this morning. Get a quick text with the link to Facebook and YouTube. You can sign up at hmmr.io/reminder. And last but not least, check us out at originatorssuccess.com. Find out how we help you get on some Google and social media. So anyway, all of that, let's go ahead and say hi to our live folks. All of my friends who are the only reason I'm here this morning, because man, I'll tell you, the markets suck. But we got Mr. Michael Love on this morning. Good morning, sir. Great to have you here. Randy Tico, giddy up, my friend. Megan Lindberg, great to have you here. Mark Clark and Dan Crowley. Dan, thanks again for always being so supportive. Appreciate you, my friend. Mallory Fotiadis, good morning. I'm glad that you'll still be my friend. Just remember, don't shoot the messenger, y'all. And once I saw this change in environment and direction, I have brought it all to your attention. Amy Blaser, good morning. James Mahan, great to have you here. Julie Lawrence, until news gets better, maybe you'll take a break. I don't blame you. The thing is, we've got some highlights on why it make it a little bit better. So we'll talk about that in a minute. Amy Blauser, James Mahan, let's see, Julie Lawrence, yep, Angela Walters, Ron Siegel said today is National Boston Cream Pie Day. I love Boston cream pie, but then again, I love sugar. Is there any sugar I don't like? Colin Jordan, good morning. Rob Stewart, Mike Tebow, you're not late, dude. We're just getting started. Tom Deadmore, Mike Morano, good morning. Only good news. I'll have a little bit of good news tucked in the bad news. How about that? Kim Mason, good morning. Mario, fun week. Yeah, oh yeah, real fun week. Christy Rezor, good morning from Tex Chica. Ron Siegel, they have no idea what's happening, really. Maybe they're watching MSNBC. Hee-haw. We know we're getting fake news. The new report from DDB is very interesting. I did pony up the cash, and I have the Daily Feather on that, Ron. So we'll talk more about that a little bit. Boston Cream Donuts at Dunkin's. Yeah, they're good. They are good. Again, totally terrible for you. Sugar is bad, but I do love sugar. I'm a sugaraholic. All right, let's get into this, and I want to go over a few things. So first things first, we'll just dive in. Let's share the screen. We'll go into where things are at and why. Right now, mortgage-backed securities are down 20 basis points on the day. I want to zoom in on some stuff so you guys can see it real clear, right? So we're down 20 basis points on the day. Right now, I have this set up to do a 1 year. Let me pull this back a little bit, right? So I have the chart set up for 1 year, and I actually want to pull this back for 5 years for a minute. Look at this. So this is 5 years of the mortgage-backed security 5.5 coupon, and we could go through different coupons, but we'll use this one for now because it's fine. So if you look back through COVID, you could see that was when mortgage-backed securities were through the roof. They were going for, look at this, $111, $160, $180, $112. And let me put this in perspective again. What does that actually mean? When we're looking at these and we're looking at this idea that there is a price going on, what you want to imagine is this, right? Let's pretend this is $100. This phone is $100, okay? And the value of this phone, retail price, was $100. And if not a lot of people want to buy my phone, but I want to sell my phone, well, what has to happen? I'm going to sell my phone at a discount. I'm going to put it on sale. Maybe I sell it for $99 or $98 or $97 because nobody wants to buy my phone, right? Maybe this is last year's phone and this is the fancy 16, but let's say that this was last year's phone and that's the reason why nobody wants this phone. So I put this phone on a discount. But let's say this is the 16 and everybody wants this phone. You can't get this phone. The Apple plant where they make this phone is on strike. They're not making the phone right now. People want to get their hands on this phone. So this $100 phone is going to sell for $101, $102, $103, $105, maybe even $112. That's what you're looking at when you look at mortgage-backed securities. Again, oversimplification, but it's how you want to deal with this. We are dealing with $100 worth of bonds that are giving you a 5.5% return, and you're willing to pay $112 for that. Now, why would that happen? Why would you do that? How does this stuff work? Again, the reason that I'm explaining this, I want everyone to realize where mortgage pricing comes from. The one thing I am sick and tired of seeing on TikTok and on Facebook is that the Fed rate cut caused mortgage rates to go up and it's going to be inflationary. No, it's not. Okay, get that out of your brain. Let me explain to you. Yes, inflation is bad for rates. It's bad for bonds. Why? Because what we're talking about here, okay? When you look at buying a mortgage-backed security, you're buying an instrument to give you a rate of return. Right now, I've got some money in the bank and it's getting 4.5% or maybe even 5% return on investment. Just a regular savings or money market account, right? Well, what happens is if I want to get 5.5% on that money, we're basically just below even money right now on that. Okay. But what if I wanted to get 8 or 9 or 10%? Well, I'm going to pay a premium for that bond. If this phone gives me, if this is a bond and it gives me a return that is much higher than market value, market returns, where I can invest my money. And again, bonds, very little or even no risk, especially treasuries. Treasuries are considered no risk. Mortgage-backed securities are very low risk. What makes mortgage-backed securities risky is, believe it or not, it's not even like when they I want to say repossession. Help me out, people. What is it when you get evicted from your house and they take your house back? I don't know why I'm having a brain fart, but help me out. What is it? What do you call it when you can't pay your mortgage and they come back after you, right? But that's not even what the problem is. The problem is early payment. It's refinancing. Now, what's making some of these less valuable? Foreclosure. Thank you, Ron. Why am I not getting that this morning? Thank you, Kayla. So when you take a look at this stuff, y'all, right, when you see what's going on here, mortgage bonds and what they're selling for, this is part of the larger scope of things. Okay. The reason that we're seeing mortgage rates go up is because mortgage-backed securities have tanked. Bonds have tanked. Why have mortgage-backed securities and bonds tanked? It's not because the Fed cut the stinking Fed funds rate. It's not. Remember something. Markets have already expected that the Fed has overshot a neutral Fed funds rate. A neutral Fed funds rate is when the Fed funds rate is in a position where inflation is at or around 2% and we've got maximum employment. Okay. If the Fed has a Fed funds rate that's too low in the way that trickles through the economy, it's going to overheat the economy and you're going to have inflation go higher. Okay. If they are too high, they're going to choke out the economy. They're going to choke out the labor market. Inflation drops, but the labor market drops. That's what happened when the Fed went up to 5.25. They overshot neutral. They are backing down and slowing down to get back to the speed limit. It's like if we were in a passing lane and you're passing a car, you're doing 50 miles an hour behind this other car doing 50 miles an hour. When you pass that car, you might go up to 75 miles an hour. But once you pass that car, if you keep doing 70, you're speeding, you're going to get a ticket. So you slow back down to say 60 miles an hour, which is the speed limit. Okay. So going here too slow, going past too fast, get back in front of it, and you get it back to that right position. That's neutral. That's what the Fed is currently doing with their cutting cycle. They're getting down so that they can get to a neutral rate. It's not overly inflationary. It's not likely to cause inflation because what they're doing is they have been too high to choke down inflation. That's why we saw inflation go from 9% down to 2.5%. However, now they're easing off the gas, and inflation, they want inflation to run. So the fact that they're not cutting too low, which would be inflationary. They're cutting back so they don't keep dropping inflation. All right. That's why the Fed rate cut that we saw, even of a half a point, that does not hurt mortgage rates. And if I see another effing loan officer who just doesn't understand that, they think that because the Fed cut rates that, oh my God, that's why rates went up. They didn't. Now let's look back at the actual dates and I will prove this to you. Okay. Look, Fed cut rates September 18th. Here we are, September 16th. Yes, we've seen the biggest lead up. They cut September 18th. Here we are, September 16th. Mortgage-backed securities, 101.61, losing ground. 101.56 on the 17th, losing ground. They were already, right before that, they were around 101.55, 101.48, 101.42, 101.53. Now the Fed cuts rates on the 18th. They dropped down to 101.41. The next day, they go back up 101.54. That's right there in that same realm of where we were. The day after, 101.37. Over here, 101.34. Back up to 101.41. We are still in a straight line from where we were. They were running smooth. They dropped a little bit, 101.22. 101.19, went back up 101.37. This is now a full week and a half later than when the Fed cut the stinking Fed funds rate. But what happens next? Oh, wait, look, here we go. The 101.19, 101.30. And then we start to lose ground. Why? Because of the labor market data and because of the expectation of what's going to happen with the Fed rate cuts over the next few months. This is when the shit started to hit the fan. We had the labor market data, boom, everything tanks. We go from 101.30, we drop all the way down to 138, almost 100 basis points. Now, we have been losing ground since then. Why? Momentum. What's going on with markets, and when you look at rate sheets, y'all, you see the same thing, okay? You see the same thing going on here. Look at this, 9/23. That's 5 days after the Fed rate cut. Rates were down to 6.11. Let's remember, they were at 6 1/8 according to Mortgage News Daily, 6.11. They're at 6.20, 6.18, 6.19, 6.21, slightly worse. Not a lot worse, slightly worse. And that was due to the hawkish comments from Powell after the Fed meeting. It wasn't really any big whatever. We didn't see rates jump where they're at now to 6 7/8 until after the labor market data and all of the negative things happening since then. What's happening? Well, I've emphasized it before. We'll hit it again. You have a lot of Fed members that are talking about the fact that they don't think that they need to cut rates and that rate cuts should be gradual. Markets had overemphasized how these rate cuts were going to be. When we use the compare feature here, look at where we were a month ago. 50% felt that in November, the Fed funds rate would be at 4.25. 4.25. We were at 5.25. That's 2 half-a-point rate cuts that they were pricing in. When we get to December, a month ago, markets believed we would be at 4. And look at this, 26% figured we would be at 3.75. That's 3 half-a-point rate cuts. The market was pricing in too much too fast. They thought that the Fed would start cutting rates, that the labor market reports that we have gotten before this last report, the previous labor market reports were all showing weakness. They were all showing that the labor market was shitting out. And traders, markets have been pricing in the idea that the Fed was going to have to take some pretty strong action because the economic data and the labor market data was showing that it was slowing down. We were getting into that idea for a soft landing. Now, they were overshooting this for sure, but that's what's different a month ago than where we're at today. Where we're at today, there's a 2% probability that in December that rates would be exactly where they're at now. Fair, not going to happen, right? But look at this 30%, this dark blue line, 30% probability that we will see a rate cut in November and not get one in December. There is a 70% probability that we will see a quarter point rate cut in November and a quarter point rate cut in December. And that's what markets are currently looking at. As we get into January and March, they're looking at where these rates will be. We have seen an overreaction. Now, I want to go back to bonds and where bonds are and what they sell for. Okay. So, a lot of people, mortgage backed securities are where your mortgage rates come from, not the Fed with the rate cut. All right. The 10-year treasury yield has shot up. Why has it shot up? Well, it shot up for a few different reasons. Number one has to do with inflation, right? The fact that what is money going to be worth later? What is the return on investment? Now, we also have to realize stocks are hitting record numbers again and again and again and again. If you can put your money into stocks, and there's very little concern that you're going to lose money because stocks just keep getting better. What incentive do you have to take a much, much lower rate of return for safety? The idea of if I gave you $1,000 and told you anything that you can make with this money is all yours, you just give me the $1,000 back. And you have a choice. You can put it all on red, and you can spin the wheel of roulette and you might double your money, but you might lose it all. There's your highest risk and your highest reward. More realistically, you could put it into stocks. Let's say that you're going to get 8 to 10% returns on stocks. Now, what are your chances of losing money? I mean, stocks are risky. Well, not when everything keeps going up, right? So where do you go? But maybe you want something that's more of a stable rate of return. It's bonds, right? You can get mortgage bonds. You can get the 10-year treasury at 3.75. Well, nobody wants 3.75 when stocks are paying out all this other money. So what's happening is that in order to facilitate trading, the natural order, just like I said to you about who's going to get the iPhone. If I have an overabundance of new iPhones, they're not selling, the price goes down. If I don't have enough new iPhones, and I need and I've got people willing to pay, the price goes up. And that's what's happening with bonds. And it's happening globally. It has to do with risk. It has to do with how the markets are doing. It has to do with the expectation of inflation. Concerns of inflation are because if Trump were to get into the office, the idea here, and guys, like we'll talk politics in a second, but the idea is if Trump were to get in, it would be highly inflationary. Well, take a look at the stuff that comes out of Kamala's mouth, right? You look at her, let me pull this up. And I think this is pandering. I don't think she really believes this. As much as people say that she's not a smart woman, you don't get to be running for president of the United States if you're not at some level smart. You've got to be extremely lucky or smart, right? So she's got a lot of things that I don't agree with. I'm not a fan, but let's be realistic. However, Harris backs $15 minimum wage in fight with Trump over pay. They asked Trump, hey, what would you do? Let's see. Harris sees the issue of raising federal minimum wage after Republican rival, former President Donald Trump, sidestepped a question on whether he would back an increase earlier this year. Trump held a campaign photo op at McDonald's in Pennsylvania where he was asked about raising minimum wage. Well, I think these people work hard. They're great. So he just avoided the question, right? Standard Trumpism. The reason that he wouldn't say, yeah, we should raise the minimum wage. How much is a Big Mac in California, Ron Siegel? I know you probably don't eat Big Macs out there, but how much is fast food in California? And what is the minimum wage that they raise it to? Is it $15 or $20, the minimum wage? And how many locations closed in California when they did this? When you have so Harris is sitting here saying, oh yeah, we would, of course she needs Congress for this. And she knows she needs Congress for this. She said that she believed in raising it and that, blah, blah, blah. Whereas it's in here, it's in the article, right? She knows that she would need Congress for this. So she could say things. Harris had previously not made clear what the hourly rate would be. Biden has urged Congress to raise 15. Raising would be an act of Congress. Harris and Trump are jockeying to court working class voters in swing states. That's the reality right now. Okay. Thank you, Ron. So Ron says $20 minimum wage at fast food restaurants. And what's happened? everything is jobs are gone, locations are gone, prices have gone up. If we were to do this, if something like this were to happen where you had a $15 minimum wage, do you know what that would do to our economy and inflation and cost? This would absolutely blow up our economy. We've all talked about this before. We're not going to beat this in, as like a dead horse. But markets know that she couldn't get this through Congress at least. They're more worried that if Trump had tariffs, that's going to be inflationary. All of this stuff is absolutely playing a role in what's going on. But the biggest thing right now, and I can't emphasize this enough, is mortgage-backed securities. Now, let me give you a little bit of hope on this. Take a look here. How many are we on? All right, I'm going to refresh this chart so that it shows the right, because some of the candlesticks are missing here. Okay, so right now, mortgage-backed securities down 24 basis points. Rate sheets this morning are going to continue to be worse. I've been telling you to lock. I'm still telling you to lock. Let me go ahead and show you, though. Look, we fell below. Look at this 200-day moving average, this purple line right here. Yesterday, you could tested it. And you see this candlestick? The small, thin part at the bottom is called a tail. The top thin part is called a wick. What this shows us is the lowest level that it tested, the highest level that it went to. It ended the day slightly worse. That's what the body is, okay? We tested the 200-day moving average, bounced off it. This morning, broke below it. Now, the little bit of hope that I'm going to give you, let me make this full screen. Let me get my head out of the way for a second here. And when we take a look at this and we do 6 month, okay, you can see that the last time we broke below the 200-day moving average, we had a similar downward slope over here. We were below it for 1 day. The next day we bounced back and saw recovery. Previously, before that, here in May, we fell below the 200-day moving average. We were there for about 3 or 4 days. We saw some recovery. Now, before that, though, you can see if we switch to a year, we spent a lot of time over here below the 200-day moving average. And this was back in November, December, and that's what I'm more afraid of. So we could see something like this where we're down below it, we come back. We're down below it, we come back. We're down below it, we come back. We could see bonds do that right here, okay, with the technicals. Or we could see what we see here, where we come down below it and we spend, let's see, this was on April 10th, and it wasn't until May 2nd. This is what I think is more realistic, one of these two scenarios. I don't think we're going to have these little ones here where we blop below and come back, blop below and come back. I think what's going to happen, we are continuing to see the mudslide, the landslide. We're going to see bonds continue to worsen. They're going to continue to drop all the way down. Right now, we're at 99.34 for the 5.5. I think we lose another 100 basis points. Okay. I think we lose another 100 basis points on this one, and that we're going to go down through here. I'll answer some of the questions, by the way, on this too. Good stuff. So, as far as all this goes, 10-year treasury, you look at this 4.25. Remember, we were at 3.73. The bottom fell out on this thing. I had been saying that once we crossed that line where the Fed rate cuts are actually going to help mortgage rates. And for anybody that wants to argue with me, let me ask you this. The Fed raised rates for 18 months. Which direction did mortgage rates go? Oh, yeah, they went up. Well, if the Fed was fighting inflation, why didn't bonds go down? Because the Fed was raising rates. That should have pushed rates down. No, it's part of the bigger picture, y'all. And I've spent 24 minutes, so I'm done for now, but it's part of the bigger picture. Fed rate cuts are not going to be considered inflationary. They're not going to push everything up. So, yeah, Brandy, definitely watch the replay on this one. Siegel, good morning. Let's go through some of his comments here because you've been very active and I appreciate that. You're just a little escalated, so your brain is glitching. Yeah, exactly. That's why I couldn't remember what the word for foreclosure. Neutral rate, stable pricing, and maximized employment. Julie said, this is why we looked at the 10-year bond for years and rates were low in 2020 due to the government buying mortgage-backed securities. Yes, that absolutely was part of it. And it was because they were trying to stimulate the economy. Ron said, if I gain £5 a month, reduce that to gaining £2 a month, I'm still gaining, still inflating, just not as fast. Exactly. Randy Teagle said fake data. Randy, I agree 100%. Ron has said that according to sources he reads, that the seasonal adjustments are even larger than normal, which they're only supposed to be changed once a year. fall. Ron said, great logic. If the Fed cutting rates causes a 30-year rate increase, if they increase rates, that'll cause the 30-year rate to go down. There's no logic there. Exactly. That was what I had said. And you nailed it. Supply and demand, economics 101. Ron, S&P 500 is 24.33 year to date, a dividend rate of 1.37, 4% 10-year, 5%. What do you prefer? 24.33% S&P. Exactly. I mean, it's just insane right now, and that's what's going on. It's like $12 to $16 per meal there these days when it was $2 for 2 cheeseburgers back then. Yeah, the math doesn't math. I mean, it's all broken. Pizza Hut laid off 1,000 people the day of the minimum wage increase. You have kiosks to order at all fast food restaurants. Yeah, and people have no jobs. So we won't even get there on that one. Ron said, if tariffs are inflationary, why do we have a 1.4% inflation at the end of Trump's term? I used to import goods from China. The Chinese government will offset the tariffs with Chinese federal subsidies, so we do not get much in price increases. I agree. I absolutely agree. But going there, historically, October is a horrible month for bonds. November is a strong month. Yes, and let's show that too. If you look at this, right? So let's do this in the 5-year. I'm going to do the 5-year here. So even if you look here, you could see that this is October of 23. You could see right here, this big dip where we went down and came back. This was October. And this is November. But what we need this time around to get that help in November, it's going to be after the election, and it's going to be the Fed meeting. So I don't know if the labor market data is going to be too helpful. I wonder if it will be manipulated or if it's going to correct and show that there was an anomaly last time around. That's number one. Number two, the actual election itself will be over. Then there's one less variable to be dealt with because markets will know who we're working with. Number three is that Fed meeting. That Fed meeting is going to be key as we get into that Fed meeting. So, all right, my friends, I'm going to wrap it up. I just needed to kind of help educate some of y'all. Tomorrow I'll talk a little bit more about Ginnie Mae bonds versus Fannie Mae bonds and the pricing you may see on like your Govy and FHA stuff and VA stuff versus what you're seeing on conventional. Overall, they're moving very similar. It could be a lot of times it's volume, it's things. I'll talk more about that tomorrow. I've already been talking for a freaking half an hour today. So anyway, my friends, thank you for joining me. I hope that you found today valuable, even though it was long. And I hope that you'll share some actual information out there and fight some of the misinformation. I'm just tired of reading from originators that have no idea what they're talking about. So